Welcome you all to course session number 5. Over the last several weeks, we've gone over so much important information about how to transition from overseas to Seattle, and today we're going to go over a lot of the information involved in that final step, actually arriving in Seattle and transitioning to life in the United States, Arrival 101. Before we go into that, I want to quickly remind you all that in the event that you missed a session in the past, or you want to refer to any of the information that we've gone over during RCG, all of that information is available to you through our Canvas page. You can always find our slides, our recordings, so on and so forth, if you want to reference any of that information in the future. So be sure to keep that in mind. Okay. Going into the content for today, we have a lot to cover, but each of these things is a super crucial part of life in the United States and super crucial to fully arriving in the United States, coming to the UW, and making sure you're set up and ready to start classes come first day of school. So the very first thing I want to talk about is the general overview. And so because there's so much information packed in this one in particular, I want to zoom out first. I want to take the big picture view to start us off. And so broadly speaking, when you arrive in the United States, there are these four massive tasks or four most important things that you have to take care of. First is to pick up your Husky card. Your Husky card is central to your life here at the UW because it is your access card to libraries, it is your access card to your dorm. It is also where you have all of your money as a student. It has your dining account, it has your Husky card printing account, and so it is really a central piece to life here at the UW. So be sure when you arrive to pick up your Husky card at the Husky card office in the basement of Odegaard. Next, of course, is your move-in. So moving in, bringing all your stuff on campus, and finding your dorm, checking in, getting your keys, so on and so forth. We're going to talk about that today as well. And then, of course, is the final piece of your advising orientation. A&O Part 3. So this is where you will go around campus. You'll see the campus for perhaps the first time. You'll get to see the dining facilities. You'll get to meet other first-year students just like yourself, and the orientation leaders will walk you through all of that process. And then finally, you must complete your ISS Immigration Check-in after you arrive. And this year, the check-in portal opens on August the 26th, and this particular task you must complete by September the 25th. And we'll talk about that later as well. Okay, jumping into the official content for today. Our very first step that we want to talk about is how to enter the US border. To get into the United States, you have to show up with a lot of pieces of documentation proving that you do in fact have the credentials to enter the country. And so is everything you prove that you're a student here at the UW. If you're an F student or a 19 for J1 exchange students, you have to bring a valid passport, valid for at least 6 months into the future. And your passport will also contain your valid US F1 visa, as long as you're not a Canadian citizen. You should also bring your SEVIS I-901 fee receipt. You can click that link on the slide right there, and it'll take you to the website. Journey through the port of entry is as smooth as possible. And then you can also bring your current class schedule as an additional form of proof that you are, in fact, a UW student registered for autumn 2024. And then if you're bringing food, say fruit, meat, so on and so forth, all of that needs to be declared in this customs declaration form. If you're not 100% sure about whether you need to declare something, I strongly encourage you to click on that link, go into that actual form, and see if what you're bringing is classified under one of the things that needs to be declared. If you're interested about learning more about what the entry experience to the United States can look like, one of our sister institutions, the University of Chicago, has put together this list of possible scenarios that you can run into. And so you can feel free to look through those to get a better idea of what you'll encounter at port of entry. A common question that we get is what is the earliest date that you can enter the United States to start as an international student for autumn 2024? And the answer to that is you can enter the country up to 30 days before your program start date. For this fall, that'll be August 17th, 2024. Okay. Moving on to our second topic. Now that you've successfully gone through the port of entry, you're in SeaTac now. How do you get from SeaTac to the University of Washington? Well, there are a couple different ways. And the first one will go in order of how much money you need to spend, I guess. The cheapest possible option, if you're looking to save some money, is taking the Link Light Rail. The fee is $3, a one-way journey on the Link Light Rail. And so you get on at SeaTac Station and you want to get off at U District Station. That is the closest station that will bring you to whether you're checking into Lander or you're checking into Willow, depending on which hall you're at. U District Station is the closest light rail station. I want to take a few moments to look at the actual Google Maps for this. So if you look at the actual path, right? I'm sure some of you come from cities that have far more complicated subway systems. But the one line, as it's called here in Seattle, is fairly straightforward. It's literally one line. It goes up and down. And so the name of the train determines which direction it goes. And so the trains are named by the last stop in the direction it's going. And so if you're going south, that'll be Angle Lake. But if you're going north, which if you look at the map here, SeaTac Station is to the south of UW. So to reach UW from SeaTac, you're going north. The name of the northbound train will be the last stop on the northbound path. And currently that's Northgate. But by the time you arrive here in the United States, starting August the 31st of this year, the last train on the northbound pathway is going to be called the Linwood stop. So you want to take the train going to Linwood Station. And along the way, you want to stop at U District Station. As you can see here, it'll be $3 for roughly a 50-minute train ride, which is not terrible. And there will be space on the train where it's like a little section of the train specifically for luggage. And so if this is the option that you're considering, it's not terrible. You get onto this train at a SeaTac station and you take the train all the way to U District Station. And then from U District Station, once you get off, if you're living on West Campus, so these halls listed here, you want to walk to Lander Hall to check in. This is roughly what that walk looks like. You get off at U District Station here, and you walk down the street to Lander Desk, where you can pick up your keys, so on and so forth. Conversely, if you live on North Campus, so these halls listed here, you can walk from U District Station again, and then go to Willow Hall. So you'll be walking this direction instead of straight down. There's a couple other options too. And so if you want to spend a little bit more money for the convenience, the car ride to the University of Washington from SeaTac takes roughly a half hour, and there's a few different options for that to happen. One thing you can do is you can use either Uber or Lyft apps to call a car to take you to UW. But I will tell you here that it can be quite pricey. I just looked it up actually. If you want to take an Uber from SeaTac to UW, it'll cost you roughly $100 unless you have a special discount, so on and so forth. But there are other options if you're interested. Oh, and of course, depending on, again, which hall you're wanting to check into, if you live on West or North Campus, these are the addresses you want to punch into the rideshare apps. But there are other options available to you, depending on how much planning you want to do in advance. And so if you want to do the minimal amount of planning in advance, you can take Uber or Lyft and call it on the spot. But if you want to call ahead of time, you can either get a taxi or you can use a door-to-door shuttle service. This one's called Premier Airport Shuttle. And so what this looks like is if you set up an appointment beforehand, they will actually send a shuttle to get you after you arrive at the airport. And so I think a couple advantages of this. Okay, the disadvantage is that you need to plan in advance. You can't just arrive at the airport, call the car, and call it good, right? You have to plan in advance. You have to set up your appointment. But the pros of this is it can actually be cheaper because especially if you're riding and you're arriving in Seattle with multiple people and you split this cost among you, it can be cheaper compared to Uber and Lyft. And the cars they come to pick you up in is these airport shuttles. And so they likely have more space for luggage, especially if you're bringing several luggages per person, since you're coming from abroad and shifting your whole life here for the next 4 years, you know? Whereas for Uber Lyft, you want to be pretty cognizant to call a big car, otherwise, not everything might fit. So it's definitely an option to consider that can be better in terms of space and better in terms of price, especially if you're splitting among multiple people. For exact rates, be sure to go to their website right here and then punch in your specific destination. Once you punch in your specific destination, you can say how many people you have, and the website will automatically generate the price you'll have to pay. Okay, moving on. The next step in the process. Now that you've gone through the port of entry and you've taken whichever mode of transportation best suits your fancy, whether it's light rail, whether it's rideshare, whether it's airport shuttle, now you're at UW, you're at Lander or Willow Desk. How to check it? Well, this is the process. So let's look at the official HFS 9-month dorm move-in instructions. And so the first step is you'll be asked to show some form of ID. Say you're a new college student and you're on campus for the first time and you're trying to check in. You want to go to either Lander or Willow Desk and we'll ask you to present some form of ID. It doesn't have to be your Husky card. You can check in with some form of photo ID. It's nice if you have your Husky card because then you can just tap into your building. There's a card scanner on the outside of each building. You use your Husky card to tap in, but worry not, especially if you're carrying a lot of luggage at once. It can be hard to carry all your luggage, to go to the Husky card office and ODA first, and then go to your dorm. And so what you can do is you can go to your dorm first, and then at Lander or Willow Desk, they will give you a temporary access card that can grant you access to your building for a set amount of time, enough time for you to then go get your actual physical Husky card. At Lander or Willow Desk, you will then be given your room and mailbox keys as well, at which point you can then start moving into your room. There will be carts, there will be people to direct you, and feel free, the HFS will be all hands on deck that day. And so you'll see RAs, you'll see people at the front desk. Feel free to ask questions to any staff that are on hand that day. Oh, you'll also pick up your red emergency backpack in case we get an earthquake or so on and so forth. And then this year, HFS, mark this date on your calendars. HFS will be sending you both your specific date and time of move-in. And so everyone is moving in anywhere between September the 17th to September the 20th, and you will be assigned a specific time slot for your move-in appointment. So just so that this is just so to help them control traffic. So not everyone shows up at once. And so HFS will be sending you your specific move-in date and time, as well as your room assignment for the year through email on this day, August the 12th. So be sure to mark that on your calendars.
Now that we've talked about move-in from between September the 17th to September the 20th, let's talk about some common check-in scenarios you'll run into should your check-in time fall outside of that window. First, if you need to change your move-in date, you can request that through your My HFS housing portal. You can also apply for early arrival if you want to arrive earlier than September the 17th. Let's take a look at the early arrival website together. For autumn 2024, the early arrival periods are period 1 for between September 8 to 18 and period 2, September 15 to 18. You can choose either period depending on your needs. There are two things to keep in mind when it comes to early arrival. One, the application deadline for early arrival for autumn 2024 is September the 1st. Also, you'll be charged a flat rate depending on which period you choose. What that means is, say, hypothetically, you choose period 1 and you arrive halfway through period 1, you will still be charged the full housing and dining fee, as well as a $25 non-refundable application charge. For more information about early arrival, feel free to look through this page. If you are arriving after September the 20th, be sure to email first-year programs at fyp@uw.edu to schedule a makeup, advising, and orientation part 3. Should you arrive after business hours, say after 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., or after Lander and Willow desks are both closed, you can take two steps. One, you can email hfsinfo@uw.edu to let them know ahead of time. And the second thing, when you get to the front door of your residence hall, you can call the RA on duty. When you call this number on the screen, 206-543-1000, you'll be taken to a phone tree. What that means is you won't be directly speaking to a person, you'll be speaking to an automated list of options. Say, for instance, that you're trying to get into Maple Hall. The automated message will have a list of different options, and one of those options will sound something like, if you're looking for the Maple Hall RA on duty, please press 2. At which point, if you press 2, you will be directed to the Maple Hall RA on duty. If you don't yet have your American cell phone number and you're unable to make that call, you can ask your friend or roommate who might be living in that residence hall, or you can reach out through your RCG group to see if anyone else is also living in that dorm.
And then if you're moving into a 12-month unit, say you're moving into one of our apartments, so Cedar, Stevens, or Mercer, you can check in at Lander Desk, and then this is your check-in day. And you can follow this page right here for all of your move-in instructions. Okay, next, let's talk about packages and shipping. And so there are some things that you will want here with you, like bedding, like pillows, so on and so forth, that can take up a lot of luggage space, and that might not even be worth it to buy a whole suitcase or to bring an additional suitcase just for these kinds of things. So we recommend that, especially for bulkier items, it might be better just to buy them in Seattle. And there are several options for that. So you can purchase bed sheets, for instance, through this Dormify link. And so on this site, there are a lot of different essentials for college dorms. They have pillows, comforters, bed sheets, so on and so forth. Keep in mind that in the United States, all of your all of your dorm mattresses are size twin XL. And so if you're shopping for any bedding, say you're shopping for a bed sheet that wraps around your mattress overall, you want to shop for size twin XL. And then if you're looking to buy new furniture, Circle, we're actually doing a trip to IKEA together on September the 20th. And so if you're interested in that, we'll be providing buses and you can sign up through your RCG group chats. We'll be sure to forward our RSVP link through all of our group chats. And then, of course, you can go shopping online, Amazon, Walmart, Target, whatever your favorite vendor is. Speaking of online shopping, your packages can only be delivered to your residential hall up to 7 days prior to move-in. That's the date your actual mail starts to be processed by HFS. And so if you're ordering anything, be sure not to have that package arrive any earlier than 7 days from your move-in date. And then based on your residence hall, you can click here and all of the mailing addresses for each residence hall can be found through this link right here. And then depending on whether you live on West or North Campus, you have slightly different instructions about how to pick up your package. If you're living on West Campus, all packages are delivered straight to Lander Desk, and you can go straight to the desk to pick up your package. However, if you live on North Campus, the process is slightly different. They have package lockers on North Campus. And so, if you want to pick up your package, if it's small enough to fit inside a locker, they'll send you a QR code and you can scan that code to open that specific locker for your package. And then if your package is too large to fit inside a locker, that package will be directly sent to Willow Desk. But regardless of whether you live on West Campus or North Campus, Lander or Willow Desk, HFS will send you an email when your package arrives. So you'll be kept up to speed on that process. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about textbooks. And so we're going to talk about different options for you to get textbooks, as well as how you can find which textbooks you need. And so we'll start with that first piece. How can you find your required textbooks? And so you can find the list of required textbooks you need through MyUW. If you go to your MyUW homepage, you can, under quick links, and register for SLN codes, it'll take you to your overall list of courses that you've registered for. From there, if you hit display textbooks, you can see all of the textbooks that are required for the classes you're taking for the upcoming quarter. Typically, a new textbook can cost you anywhere between $50 to $300. And so with that price tag in mind, there are a few different options you can consider. And so I want to take you through the U Bookstore website real quick. And so this is a handy tool that they've created for all students to find the requisite textbooks they need for that course. So for instance, let's walk through the process together. So they want us to select a school. We're UW Seattle, and they want us to select a term. So that'll be UW Seattle Fall 2024. And then let's use English, for instance, right? English 131 is a common freshman course. And so let's take a look at an English class and the course uh, required textbooks for that. And so let's choose UW Seattle English as the department. And then let's choose 131 as the class number. And then from there, you can select any section. Well, you want to be sure to purchase the book corresponding to your specific section. Let's just say English 131A for now. And then after you select that course, you can begin shopping. And voila, this website will tell you the specific textbook you need. It looks like for English 131A, for this fall, you need this book right here. And it'll also give you a price range here. And so if you look at here, you can select your product type. And so you can choose to buy a new textbook, and that'll cost you $100. Or you can also buy a used one. That'll cost you $75. Or you have other options too. If you don't feel like you need the physical textbook, you can also choose to rent a digital text. You can't rent a physical textbook anymore. You can only rent a digital version of the textbook. And that'll be a different price. Say you can rent for 180 days for $60, or you can rent for 365 days, a full year, for slightly more money, $63. And so, based on your needs and preferences, you can kind of balance those options in your head. Another thing I do want to know is that the U Bookstore does a thing where they allow you to sell your book back to them after you're done with it for the quarter. Generally speaking, the maximum amount of money you can get back for selling your book back to the U Bookstore is roughly half the money you originally spent. So, say you bought a $100 textbook, you might be able to get $50 back, but that's conditionally. That's based upon the fact that the course continues to use that same textbook in the upcoming quarter. In the event that the textbook is no longer used, the U Bookstore might not buy that textbook back. So it's a little bit of a risk you're taking there, but it is an option in general. Generally speaking, courses will use similar textbooks year upon year. But there might be some changes though. So keep that in mind that it's a possibility that you won't be able to sell it back. But if you are able to sell it back, you can get up to half of your money back. Another option is you can also reserve your textbooks from UW libraries, and that'll be for free. But generally speaking, you won't be able to get your textbook for the full quarter. And so you might be able to reserve it for maybe a month. But if you want an actual textbook that you won't have to return just for yours, you can either buy or rent it. And then real quick, I want to mention that if you choose to buy a textbook from the U Bookstore, they will hold on to it for you for up to 30 days. And so you can reserve a textbook after paying it, and they'll hold on to it. They'll hold on to it for you for up to 30 days. In addition to textbooks, there are some web aspects of the course that you might actually have to purchase as well. For example, if you're taking a psychology course, you might have to purchase Inquisitive, which is their online platform, which they use to grade students and teach students. For math, it'll be WebAssign. And then you will also find this information under display textbooks or your course syllabus. If you want to consider options outside of the U Bookstore for price or availability, so on and so forth, there are other options you can consider as well. For example, you can buy used textbooks off Amazon, eBay, Facebook groups. You can buy it off former students looking to just to get rid of them through any means possible. You can also rent textbooks through Amazon, but again, these will only be digital copies as well. You can compare prices and see which one makes the most sense to you. Again, you can also check out copies from libraries, or some professors will actually be very nice to you and provide you with a PDF or online copies of certain chapters that they're specifically focusing on, or full textbooks sometimes. Some classes won't require you to buy textbooks at all, and so be sure you're aware of that going into each course. Here I want to note real quick that there can be copies, like full copies of textbooks, available online as PDFs. However, due to copyright laws in the United States, if you download these, that's technically illegal. And so if you download those on school Wi-Fi and they find you and catch you for doing that, potentially they can revoke your school internet access. And so if you do find these PDFs, be sure to download them on your own Wi-Fi and not school networks. Okay, moving on. Next, let's talk about cell phone plans. And so there's a lot of different options, but first, let me motivate why this might be a wonderful thing to do. And so, first off, the US government actually, by law, requires international students to both have a local address on file and a US phone number on file. Keep in mind that the government will almost never actually call or text your phone number, but it's required that you have one on file. If the US government wants to reach out to you, they'll most likely, 99% of the time, will either send you paper mail, which is very common, or they will reach out to you through ISS. And then ISS, International Student Services, will send you an email. And so by and large, the vast majority of cases, if something is coming from the US government or claims to be from the US government, it will be either through mail or email. And that email will largely come from ISS. If you get a text or a call from somebody claiming to be a US government official, most of the time that will be a scam. So be very, very careful. But nonetheless, the US government does require you to have both a local address and a US phone number. In addition, a lot of times when you set up different accounts, whether you want to pay for internet, you want to make a bank account, you want to pay for your utilities, so on and so forth, they will also require you to have a phone number on record. So it's just handy overall. It smooths everything out to have a US phone number. In addition, for two-factor authentication, for many different things, say you want to set up two-factor authentication for your bank account, for instance, it's handy to have a US phone number because they'll text your US phone number with a specific verification code that you can then put into the bank portal to sign into the bank. So the bank portal knows for sure that it is you. Although for the University of Washington specifically, you can use the Duo app. You don't necessarily need a US number to sign into your UW portal. And then overall, just having a US phone number facilitates conversation with other students that you meet here. And so whether that's iMessage, whether you want to call people, whether you want to set up a group chat, so on and so forth, having a US phone number just makes everything smoother. And make sure when you get here to update your local address in your MyUW, and then as soon as you get a US cell phone number. Okay. Moving on to the different options that are available to you. I want to talk to you real quick about the different kinds of phone plans here in the United States. Generally speaking, one of the cheapest things you can get is called a prepaid plan. And so prepaid plans are plans where you pay upfront. Say we're thinking of a 30-day cell phone cycle, right? And so you're paying for 30 days worth of cell phone usage. Prepaid plans are plans where you pay upfront. You pay before you use the service. And these plans will generally be cheaper compared to plans called postpay plans. So you pay at the end of the month after you've already used the service. And so one of the cheapest prepaid plans available to students is through Mint Mobile. And so Mint Mobile is a relatively new network, but they're piggybacking off of one of the more pre-established networks. And the T-Mobile is another large nationwide network of cell towers. And Mint Mobile uses the same cell towers that T-Mobile does, only Mint Mobile has slightly different plans. And so these are what Mint Mobile plans look like. And so if you want to buy, for instance, a prepaid plan of 3 months, and so you're paying for 3 months of data and phone usage upfront, it'll be $15 a month, $45 in total. Upfront payment requires. You pay them first, and then you can use the service, as opposed to postpay, where you use the service first, then pay for it. So this is prepaid plan. And generally speaking, it is one of the cheapest options you can find, especially for students. Then I want to introduce you to another plan called family plan. So especially if you know students who are coming to Seattle or through RCG, you can meet other students from your respective regions of the world that are coming to Seattle together. You guys can consider buying a family plan together. And so what that looks like is let's look at one of the plans that AT&T offers. So this is another one of our large nationwide carriers for cell phones. And so say you select this plan, right? If you if you yourself want to buy this very fancy AT&T unlimited premium plan, it'll be $85.99 per month per line. and each line is a correspondent to each person, right? So a very expensive plan, right? We just looked at Mint, it's $15 a month versus AT&T here, you pay $86 a month effectively. However, the more people you add to this plan, the cheaper it becomes. And so, say you have 5 people on this family plan, now your price per month has dropped to $46.99. Or if you go for your starter pack, a cheaper AT&T plan, it'll be $30 per month per line. If you have 5 people on this same plan. And so that's another option to consider. And then beyond that, the specifics of which plan you want to choose depends on your specific needs. And so you want to compare how much data you want, the different services that the respective carriers offer, how much talk time, text, quality of data, speed of data, 5G, 4G, whatever have you, all of the other factors you want to consider. But I just want to tell you briefly about the different plan options that exist. I also want to mention something cool about one of our major carriers, T-Mobile. And so T-Mobile actually has something cool offered through their plans where they have unlimited international data roaming. What that looks like is even if you usually if you buy a US phone plan, right, it will only work within the United States. But T-Mobile has unlimited international data roaming, which means when you travel across the world to different countries, you can still use your data plan since T-Mobile has partnered with carriers from all over the world. And so that's just something to consider when you're looking into which phone plan to buy. Also, the plans can change. The carriers can modify the specifics of their plan details. And so before buying a plan, be sure to ask questions to make sure you're fully understanding what you're paying for. Speaking of asking questions, here are some common questions that we get, or common questions we strongly recommend you to ask wherever you're trying to buy a phone plan from. And so, for international students especially, hypothetically speaking, say you don't buy a T-Mobile plan so you buy a plan you can only use within the United States, but you're planning on going home for the summer. And so that's 3 months or 4 months of your phone plan that you can't use effectively. You're effectively not using. And so a common question we encourage people to ask their cell phone providers is, can I pause payments if I'm returning back home for the holidays for an extended period of time, say 3 to 4 months? Usually, the answer is no. Usually, the major carriers only allow you to pause payments for maybe 1 to 2 months. And so, if you're planning on returning home, you already know, say next summer, you already know you're going home for 3 to 4 months, then you might want to pay for intervals of 3 months, say prepaid plans. And so you're not paying for phone plans next summer. So that's just something to consider. Another common question we strongly encourage students to ask their cell phone providers is, can they keep the same phone number if they change carriers? Say you started on Mint Mobile, but for whatever reason you want to switch to AT&T. Will you be able to keep the same cell phone number, or will you have to find an entirely different cell phone number? That can vary based on carrier. And so when you set up your plan and receive your first US cell phone number, you want to ask the vendor to make sure you understand whether or not you will be able to do that. On a quick side note, when you arrive here in the United States in the fall, we'll have what's called our Circle Post-Arrival Resource Fair. And we'll talk more about this later, but we'll have AT&T there as well. We'll have an actual vendor for you to be there for you to talk to and ask any questions you have about cell phone plans in the United States. Moving along, let's talk about banking now. Tuition is a huge part. Tuition can involve large sums of money. And so we're going to talk about how students typically navigate that situation, some of the recommendations we make when it comes to banking, especially for international students. And so there are two large pieces of money that you'll have to pay for UW related things. One is your tuition bill. And so that's for your courses. It'll change based on the number of credits you're taking, so on and so forth. Generally, for international students, it will always be that same full-time rate of classes. And then, so there's a second piece, though, and these two are separate. You'll have to pay them separately. One is your tuition, the other is your house or tuition first. And so, your tuition bill for fall at least will be available starting August the 29th. And in the future, and as well for this one, if you want to find out how much you need to pay, you can always go to your MyUW and go under accounts and go to tuition. The deadline for tuition payments will always be the third Friday of each quarter. And for fall, this coming fall, that will be October the 11th, 2024. Our general advice for how to pay the University of Washington is as follows right here. Our general advice is for you to wire that money from an international bank account into a US bank account. And then from that US bank account, use WebCheck, which is UW's payment service for how it collects its tuition. And we make this recommendation because if you think about the tracking of that money, right? When you're paying the University of Washington directly from a foreign account, you can only see that money leave from your end, but you can't really see what happens on the UW side. So it's a very nebulous thing, right? You're not sure, say you entered something wrong, or you're not sure if UW actually has received your payment. However, if you send your money from a foreign bank account to a US bank account that also belongs to you, then you can see that money transfer point to point, right? You can see that money leave your international bank account and arrive in your US bank account. And if you pay through WebCheck through your US bank account, that process is a lot more transparent. And so that's our overall recommendation. And of course, we have an entire office at the UW dedicated to helping you with any money related, any tuition related questions. And that office is Student Fiscal Services, abbreviated SFS. And you can reach them in person at these hours, or you can send them emails through sfshelp@uw.edu. The other large chunk of money is your housing and dining fee, which you'll be paying to Housing and Food Services, HFS. And so your autumn 2024 housing bill is available in your My HFS portal about 4 weeks in advance. And you can find your bill if you go to your housing portal and then go to Account, Resources, and make a housing payment. You can pay with either a credit or a debit card. And the deadline to pay is the same as your tuition. Again, it's the third Friday of every month, October the 11th, in the case of fall. And if you have any questions about your billing statements for HFS, you can email them at hfsinfo@uw.edu, or you can visit the student service desk at Lander or Willow Hall. Let's talk about specific bank account information that you can have. And so you can either open a checking or savings account. And there's a difference. For daily spending, for everyday spending, you want to make a checking account. Um, because the difference between checking and savings account is primarily two things. One is the interest rate, the second is number of withdrawals you can make. And so savings accounts will generally have higher interest rate. So say if you put a large sum of money, say $1,000 in a savings account over a certain period of time, month, year, so on and so forth, the bank will give you back a percent of that money or will add interest to your account. And generally, savings account will have higher interest rates than checking accounts. However, savings accounts usually have a cap, a maximum number of transactions that you can make, a maximum number of times that you can pull money out of that account per month or per time period. And so for daily spending, you want to make a checking account. Also, when you come to the US, you can make a credit card account. And so if you're thinking about staying in the United States long term, right? If you want it, so if you want to buy a car, if you want to borrow money for a car or borrow money to buy a house, your credit score, your US credit score, is a very, very important number that allows banks to kind of gauge how trustworthy you are as a lender, as a person for them to lend money to. And so building your credit is a very, very important thing in the United States. And the key thing about credit is that the earlier you start building it, the better. However, the thing I will mention is generally banks won't give out credit cards to people who are first-time users or have no pre-existing credit history. And so there are very few bank accounts, there are very few credit cards that are available to first-time students. But if you start with a checking account, right, and you have a checking account for a couple years with a bank and they see that you have a banking history with them, they are more likely to issue you a credit card because they're like, huh, this person has had money with my bank for a long time. So they might be more trustworthy compared to someone I don't know at all. So from the bank's perspective, they then might be more willing to give you a credit card. But otherwise, there are also credit options for students, and there are a lot of information about that. But generally speaking, you can open a credit card account. Speaking of banks, There's a lot of them around campus, actually, which is very handy, very convenient. And so if you're looking to make an account with US Bank, there's a branch in the Husky Union building right on campus. There's also a branch in the U Bookstore. There's also a branch of US Bank in University Village. And so they're a very prolific bank. They have three branches in and around campus. In addition, if you're looking to make an account with Bank of America, they also have two branches. One on the Ave on University Way, and another in University Village. If you want to make a Chase Bank account, there's a branch on University Way as well. And so if you're thinking about which bank to go with, you can compare and contrast the options that they offer, and you can talk to the representatives and see what deals they have going and what incentives they have, especially for international students. In the vein of thinking of credit cards, you can also see which credit cards you would like to get based on which bank you're applying to. I want to plug an info session real quick. You might have a lot of questions about how the US banking system works, about how to make a checking account, about the specific details involved in the long-term view, so on and so forth, banking as a student. US Bank is offering a free info session come this Saturday, oh no, a couple Saturdays from now, August the 17th at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And this webinar will go through all of the banking basics for international students. And you can register for the Zoom session here by following this link on the slide. Overall, going back to basics, these are the common requirements for opening a bank account. You'll need a passport, I-20, current US address, a phone number, generally speaking. And then if you're opening a savings account, you'll generally need some minimum opening deposit. Overall, having a bank account has many different benefits. And so it's relatively easy to make. And then, generally speaking, when it comes to paying for your tuition and HFS, it just makes the whole process so much smoother. And so we were talking earlier about the transferring the money from your international bank account to a US bank account, and you can actually see that money being transferred. So having a US bank account just really smooths along that process. And then if you want to pay for HFS, HFS takes debit and credit card. And so paying that through a US bank account is much more handy and just much faster overall. In addition, this is kind of a life as a student in the United States kind of thing. If say you go out with friends for dinner, right, and then one person pays or the restaurant doesn't allow you to split the check into multiple pieces, and you want to pay your friend back, right, for something they paid for you, having a US bank account to connect to apps like Zelle or Venmo, so on and so forth, just makes that interaction so much more smooth, right? So you can transfer money to your friends can transfer money to you. It just makes life so much more smooth and easier. But say if you don't want to do this, or if you're considering a different option, you don't want to do that wire transfer yourself when you're paying tuition, another option you can consider um, is you can go through a vetted third-party service through SFS. And they have, if you go to their SFS website, there are a few different options there as well. And so you can look into that if you feel more comfortable handing over that transaction to a third-party service. Moving on, let's talk about international student health insurance. And so that'll be ISHIP. And so there's a lot of information involved in this, but they provide us with a handy new student checklist that we'll go through right now. And so you already enrolled or you already selected to enroll in ISHIP when you registered for classes in your pre-registration step. And so as we approach fall, you will receive your LifeWise welcome email. And so this says that for autumn quarter, your LifeWise, you'll receive your email in the first week. And so unless you haven't registered for classes yet. If you register for classes already, you'll receive your LifeWise welcome email in the first week, September the 1st. And that is also September the 1st is the date that your actual health insurance begins. Your actual health insurance kicks in. And so in that first welcome email, you want to be sure you pay attention to the details because that will include several key pieces of information. The most important piece of information in that email is your LifeWise insurance ID number. Because if you say you want to receive your services through your health insurance without actually having your health insurance card yet, the most important service you can receive is your immunization. And so if you need your MMR or meningitis shot, if you go to the Husky Health Center on campus, even if you haven't received your actual physical insurance card yet, with this ID number that you get from LifeWise, you can check in to Husky Health Center and get your shots that you need to make sure you are fully immunized against these diseases that the immunization office wants you to be immunized against. And again, this is fully covered under ISHIP. I want to talk about timing a little bit. And so we've run into this issue in the past where students are choosing whether or not to buy quarterly or annual health insurance. And so I think it comes down to whether or not you want to stay for the summer, next summer. And so I want to zoom out real quick and talk about health insurance in the United States as a whole. And I want to say that health insurance in the United States is very, very important because for some strange reason in this country, the health care can be very, very expensive unless it's covered by health insurance. For instance, say for some accident happens, God forbid, but say some accident happens and you have to go to the emergency room. An emergency room visit without health insurance can set you back thousands of US dollars, up to say in the $2,500 USD range. However, if you have health insurance, depending on which plan you have, you'll range around maybe the $200 to $250 range. And so the difference in money is absolutely massive. And so you want to be sure that you have health insurance when you're staying in the United States. And so if you are staying for next summer, you can buy the annual ISHIP insurance. So you make sure that you're fully covered for the entire year. Here on the FAQ page, so this is linked to the iShip FAQ sheet, and so this is their list of commonly asked questions. Here on the FAQ sheet, you can see the times that you'll be covered for. So if you pay for quarterly insurance, you'll see exactly which times and dates you're covered for. And then if you buy the annual insurance, it will go all the way from September the 1st, starting September the 1st, to August the 31st. And this page right here will also have a lot of the common answers to commonly asked questions. Okay, these are the overall steps. And so, again, when you arrive in the United States, do update your local address. So once you update your local address through your MyUW, after 2 to 5 days, that change in your local address will sync with your LifeWise profile. You can make your LifeWise profile after you get your ID in that welcome email, remember. After these sync, LifeWise will begin the process of actually emailing you or mailing you your physical insurance card. After you receive your physical insurance card, you can then start to look for other options around campus. Say you don't want to go to Husky Health Center, there's a portal in the LifeWise website where you can look for other in-network options, other options that are also covered by your iShip insurance. And once you have your physical insurance card, you can then take that physical insurance card and go to other providers in and around campus that you may prefer, as opposed to the Husky Health Center. Again, for the Husky Health Center, you only need your ID, your LifeWise ID, because they recognize that as students, you might not have gotten your actual physical health insurance card yet. But if you want to go off campus, they might not be quite as understanding. So just keep that in mind. So after you make you and register for LifeWise, then they'll begin sending you that physical health insurance card. LifeWise also has an app for you to view medical costs, find other in-network doctors, so on and so forth. And again, if you have questions, you can call them here at their customer service. And of course, you'll need to provide your name, date of birth, and local address so to make sure they know who you are. Okay. Again, these are the contacts. This is the actual company that's offering the LifeWise insurance. And then this is their website right here. You can look for in-network doctors and you can check any potential insurance claims that you have. And so say you see a doctor and then you're wondering how much will be covered by insurance, you can see those claims on that website. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the ISS Immigration Check-in. And so when you arrive in the United States, ISS, our International Student Support Office, International Student Services Office, has several different things that they need you to absolutely complete when you arrive in the United States. And so that looks like this. I want to let's go to their website real quick. And so you can only complete this after you arrive in the United States. And that is because of the first step right here. ISS wants you to obtain your I-94. Your I-94 is your proof of entry document. Your I-94 is the document that proves that you actually entered the United States. When you arrive in SeaTac and pass through the port of entry, the CBP officer, the Custom Border and Patrol officer, will actually go into the online system, the I-94 system, and marked that you actually have arrived in the United States. And so you can only obtain this document maybe a day or two after the I-94 system fully updates, after you've arrived in the United States. Next, ISS wants you to update your UW account with your US address, so your local address, and your US phone number. And then, of course, as international students, you must enroll full time. And then, finally, this is a step from the US government. The US government wants you to complete an immigration check-in, proving that, hey, you've entered the country, so on and so forth. Everything is smooth. And so this step you absolutely must do through My ISSS. Okay, all the different RSOs will go out and put on an event. And so it's a great time to meet other students. It's a great time to explore all of the student organizations that are offered on campus. Whether you're looking to explore a hobby, you're looking to meet new communities of students, you're looking to further your path in your major, and you want to join a major specific club, so you want to join an engineering or business club, so on and so forth, Dawg Daze is absolutely the time to do that. In addition, if you go to this website right here, you can filter the events and you can say key events. These are key events put on by first year programs, and they are a wonderful time, especially for first year students. There's one bus away to Ballard, one bus away to Columbia City Othello. You can really start exploring the greater Seattle region right when you get here. In addition, there's one specific event I really want to point out, and that is this right here. That is the official university welcome for all new freshmen. It is a time-honored tradition that all students go through, and it happens every single year in Husky Stadium, and for all freshmen to welcome you officially to the university. We call that event Convocation. In addition, you may have seen this kind of a photo a lot. I don't know if I can open this image right here. Oh, it's cut off. But it's a time-honored tradition for all freshmen to take what's called the W photo. So they gather all the freshmen. They've already set up like strings on Husky Stadium field, and you have. Let me pull up an image actually. It looks like that, and it happens for every single class. I'll use 2016 because it was my class. They line up all the freshmen and they pack you all into this giant W on Husky Stadium, and they have a really powerful camera up in the highest like balcony of Husky Stadium, and they take such a high resolution photo of the incoming freshman class that you can actually find your face in this photo when they release the photo. So it's a UW's official ceremony of welcome for all incoming students. And so you definitely want to mark your calendars for a convocation, for a new Husky Welcome Day. This year, it'll be Sunday, September the 22nd from 10:30 to 3 p.m.
Next, let's talk about International Welcome Programs, or IWP. IWP is a set of events held by Circle specifically for incoming international students during Dawg Daze between September the 16th and September the 24th. If you click on this link right here, it'll take you to the UW Circle page where you can see the full list of events that we're offering this Dawg Daze. You can also filter events by specific days. Say you're interested in knowing what events are happening on Monday the 16th, you can click on this tab to find out. There's a few events in particular during IWP that I would like to highlight. First is our post-arrival resource fair. During RCG, we went over a lot of different resources, from housing to health insurance to phone plans to banking, so on and so forth. And you might have burning questions about these topics still. Well, fear not, because on that day, during the post-arrival resource fair, we'll have representatives from all of these campus partners and respective organizations there to answer all of your questions.
For instance, if you haven't yet gotten your MMR or meningitis vaccine shots yet, we'll have a vaccine clinic on site that day where you can get your shot on the spot. If you have remaining questions for international student services or questions about your international student health insurance, we'll also have representatives from those campus units there to answer any questions you may have. If you're looking to start a US phone plan, or if you're looking to start a US bank account, we'll have representatives from AT&T, from T-Mobile, from US Bank to help guide you through that process and answer any of your questions as well. Another event I really want to highlight is our Circle tailgate for our Husky football game. It'll be one of the first home games of the season for this year, and it'll be one of those games where the students are just starting to come back to campus. And so it'll be such a fun time. It'll be such a great game. It'll be played on home turf in Husky Stadium, which I'm very, very excited for. There's another American tradition, as sports culture is huge in Seattle. There's another tradition called tailgating where people get food together before a game and then go watch the game together. And that's exactly what we'll be doing. We'll be handing out free food at the tailgate, and then we'll go together and watch the game, and it'll be an amazing time. Lastly, I want to highlight the Circle Day for new international undergrads. That's a full day of programming specifically catered for incoming international students. And so it'll start off with a panel, and then you'll get to explore the different districts of Seattle in groups. And the day will end with a pizza party along with games. And so it'll be a great time overall. Be sure to look forward to that. Overall, be sure to look out for our IWP events held by Circle this Dawg Daze.
Finally, I want to shout out a specific organization. And so, if you're interested in looking for off campus housing, or after you get your HFS room assignment and you really don't want your HFS assignment, I believe right now, if you cancel your assignment, it'll cost you several $100s. It'll cost you $400 or $500. But if you really don't like your room assignment and you want to look for off-campus housing options, we have representatives from TripleLink, one of our campus partners. And so they're an off-campus housing agency managing a lot of the different properties in the U District area. And they are highly knowledgeable about the off-campus housing situation. And if you want to know more about that, you can register for this Zoom link right here. And they're doing an off-campus housing fair through TripleLink, and that's happening on August the 9th, Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Overall, this was a lot of information. So be sure to look through these slides again, to look through the specific steps for arriving in the United States and getting your life all set up in the weeks up until the first day of school. To be sure that by the first day of school, you are fully prepared to handle all the challenges, the joys, and journeys that the university life has to offer. And as always, if you have any questions, we're always here for you, and you can email us at uwcircle@uw.edu. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the fall.